Hello, this is Freddie T. Wyatt, and you are listening to the Real Life Church podcast.
Well, we are back with part 2 of the Elijah Guzman. You know, fill in your own pronunciation, that's right. The interview where we're diving into this man's story and letting you, our listeners, get to know. So we're still in the car.
Yep.
But we've had a little break since we did interview 1. We're on our way to Louisville, Kentucky for a conference. And I'm so excited to be interviewing Elijah. And so Elijah, okay, so we left off, and you were teaching us. You were taking us to school, giving us such a good perspective to how to love people well that may be in minorities and other ethnicities. And anyways, very helpful stuff. If you didn't listen to part 1 of the interview, go back and listen to it. Stop right now. Stop. Hit pause. Go back and listen to part 1. So let me ask you this. What do you treasure most? Like what is the best part about having this kind of Puerto Rican rich heritage? You were born in Orlando, you grew up here, but your dad's from Puerto Rico and your grandfather's from Puerto Rico, your wife's from Puerto Rico.
Yep.
So, what do you love most about your heritage?
What I love most, I'm a larger man, so yeah, obviously the food I love, but
so what's the best dish? What's the best dish?
That's between 2. One is just your typical Spanish, Puerto Rican. It's rice with chickpeas, and we say that arroz con gandules.
Nice.
So rice, chickpeas, and usually like bistec, so like a little steak.
Yeah.
Or and on the opposite, it's I never had it until I was like, my wife made it for me.
Okay.
And it's called pastelón. So think of lasagna, but instead of the flour layer, it like the pasta layer, it's plantains.
Oh, whoa.
Cut long ways.
No way. So it's sweet.
So yes. So it's so. I think you make it just like a lasagna.
Yeah.
But you just substitute that right there, hands down.
All right.
One of my favorites.
So your wife's name is Naomi. Naomi, if you're listening to this podcast,
I
want some of this plantain lasagna. Okay, so she makes that with the rice and the chickpeas and the steak. Is that right?
Yeah, the steak, or it could be chops. Pork chops.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So the food, and you would just want to land that. Is that your answer? Or do you want to add to that? Is there more?
I'm sorry. See, big people talk about food.
Well, we haven't eaten dinner yet, so you're like
mine was like stuck on food. But also the sense of family.
Yeah.
Like it's Hispanic in general are tight knitted families and large families, and they always stay at home with the parents. Like my parents, if they could still have room for me and my family to live with them, they would.
Yeah.
Like my mom never said you're out of the house. No, I left the house when I got married. So around 22 is when I left the home. Yeah. So it was always always welcoming, and like the mother and the parents would love to have the kids. So I got a sense of family. So like for me and my family, I love my kids so much. I always want to be around them and cherish them. So it's like one of those keep it tight knit family.
Okay, so I've always admired that about Latino cultures. I love that. But let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
So a couple of weeks ago I was preaching.
Yeah.
Do you know where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I think so.
And I said something about 34-year-olds playing video games and living in their mom's basement.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I said that, Like, is there something that kind of rises up in you that... No?
No, because most Spanish, Puerto Ricans that I know, they would kind of smack them upside the head if they were like that.
Yeah, like get a job. Yeah. Like we love you. You can live here.
Just be productive.
That's right. Okay. Yeah.
Respect the household.
That's good. Yeah. So. Contribute here.
Yeah, contribute.
Yeah.
You can stay as long as you want. Just
nice. Well, so I often tell people about our experience in New York.
Yeah.
So we moved to New York City in 2008 to help plant Gallery Church in Manhattan. And there's the car right now is really noisy. We're in the car. We're on the interstate. So I don't know how this audio is coming through. It might be a little loud. So if you're listening to this, thanks for bearing with us if it's loud, because it sounds loud in the car right now. But we're going to go for it. Anyways, so moved to New York City 2008. So we give birth to the twins a month after we move. And Jack is like almost 2, okay? So we've got 3 kids, and we live in a tiny little apartment. And we had this Hummer stroller. I called it our Hummer stroller because it looked like a Hummer. Yeah. And it had 2 twin seats, and then it had a jockey seat over it. So Jack would sit up above the twins, And people would give us the dirtiest looks in Manhattan because it's kind of like Manhattan is not wired for families. And they're just, it's like all these elite New Yorkers looking at you like going, get off our sidewalk. Like, what are you doing with 3 kids in Manhattan? So we lived on the Upper West Side of Manhattan for a year, about a block from Central Park. It was beautiful. I loved it. Loved the energy of the city. Loved that great city. It's incredible. But then we moved to Harlem, and 79% of our neighborhood was Dominican. Yep. And so... So the Dominican culture is a family-rich culture. Yeah. And so rather than giving us dirty looks, now people start coming up and pinching our kids' cheeks, saying, "Oh, the babies,"
Babies, yeah.
And they loved that we had a big family, living on their block. And anyways, okay. So the food and the family culture, beautiful. Okay, so let's jump back in and let's pick it up. You graduate high school. Yeah. What's next?
Wow.
How many people went to your high school?
Oh, it was a really big high school.
Graduating class of how many?
I can't remember the class.
Over 200?
We were in the Amway Center, so where the Magics played.
Oh, yeah.
So we graduated in there.
So you had over 200, maybe over 500? 500?
Maybe about, I'd say between like 300 or 400.
Okay, that's about how many I had.
Yeah. So it was a good size graduation class.
Yeah. Our graduation was in the Dunn Center where the Austin Peay Governors play. Yeah. Are you impressed?
No, yeah. It was just like that's where we went instead of like the gym at the school.
Yeah. No, I know. I'm just kidding.
Well, you got to accommodate for all the Orlando's filled with Hispanics, so all the families are coming. Cousins are coming, the aunties.
Yeah.
So you got to accommodate the family.
There it is. I love it. Yeah. I love it. Okay, so you graduate high school. What's next?
So I was like, I don't know if I really didn't know my calling or vocation in my life, so I was really lost. So I didn't go to college. I was like, maybe I'll go to community college. So then I just lingered for a little bit, and then I lost my grandmother passed away, and that was very that was a hard time in my life where it's just I looked up. She raised me until I was like 9, just because my parents worked so hard and long days, and I barely saw them. So it was a hard loss. So I got into this mode of I'm just gonna, maybe you could say depression. It was probably depression, and I just went and started working at a 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven working graveyard.
Your grandma died. You got depressed, and you're working the graveyard at 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
What happened next?
What happened next was the student pastor at the church I was going to just reached out to me.
Praise God for student pastors.
Yes. And he was the person that got me, growing up in the church, but he was the one that got me connected with Christ to see the relationship side of Christianity and what Jesus really does to us. And he reminded me of it, and it brought me out of that time. And then that's when I met my wife.
So what did he do exactly, this student pastor?
He just talked.
He called you on the phone?
He just called me up. He's like, hey, man, I miss you.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't, at the funeral, he wasn't like, he barely said, the worst thing for me, everybody goes through loss differently.
Yeah.
Me was, I didn't want to hear what anybody had to say.
Yeah.
About anything.
Yeah.
I really didn't care. I was just in such a hurt. But he wasn't there, like, he didn't say anything to me. And he only spoke to me after.
Did you want people to be present?
I wanted people to be present. I wanted people to...
You just didn't want them filling your ear with all this?
I just didn't want to hear from them to come to me. I'd rather them be there to respect and honor the life of my grandmother.
Okay. So you were glad they were there.
I just didn't want them to come up to me and talk to me.
Yeah. And he didn't?
He didn't.
Okay.
He just said... He didn't barely say anything. It was just...
So then he calls you and he's like, "Hey, I miss you, man."
Yeah, I just miss you.
Where you at?
Let's get there. Let's come over. And I think I was like 6 months in, just working graveyard, barely seeing the sun, and
yeah.
So I was like, all right, and I just chilled and talked to him.
To his house? Come over to his house, or come over to the church, or?
Yeah, it was the church. Like, just come over, and I was just in the parking lot talking,
just hanging out.
Yeah, and then it just got me refreshed. Brought me back to, understanding that, my grandmother's in a better place, She was a woman of faith. Like, I had all these moments of reassurance, of, she's better, and I grew a lot in that moment.
So did he talk to you specifically about your grandmother, or was it just his presence?
Just his presence and relationship.
Yeah. So one of our values at Real Life Singo is truth in relationships. Yeah. And that's part of your story. Yeah. You're depressed. You're kind of out of it, and he reaches out and says, "Let's hang.
Just hang.
Let's talk."
Didn't preach my ear off. None of that. It was just fellowship.
So you start going back to church.
Yep.
Were you not going to church?
I was graveyard, so I didn't.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it was more of just sitting at home.
Yeah. Just
being alone.
Gotcha. So you start going back to church. Then what happened?
I go to this youth gathering of multiple churches, and went there, and afterwards we do like a raid, a dinner raid, or restaurant raid. I'm trying to translate all these terms in my head because it's different in Spanish. And then there with a whole bunch of people, and I knew a lot of people, and then there was this group of table of girls. Okay, so I'm about to get the story. You're about to tell me where you met your wife. Yeah. All right, keep going. So we're at Denny's, and they invited me down to sit down, and there were all single women, and I was there, and then we were just talking, and then I was sitting across the table from this other girl I'd never met before. All the single ladies. Yeah. All the single ladies. So I was like, man, that's a pretty, she's a beautiful. I was like, wow, she's beautiful. You're struck. I was struck. I was just like, I've never seen her before. Wow, she's so pretty, and I was like, but I didn't talk to her at all at the table. I talked to everybody else except for her. So, and then at the end of the night, I shook my hand. And I said, my name is Elijah, and she told me her name, Naomi. I was like, nice to meet you, and that was it. So the whole night, you're talking to everybody but her. Yeah. But you get the courage. Yes. To introduce yourself. Yes. Okay, so what happened next? So what happened next is that I go to Hawaii. I was blessed. My father, he's like, I refinance, and hey, you know what? We're all going to Hawaii. So we, him and his brother, my uncle, we all went. So off the podcast, you just got through telling me this story. You get to go on a month-and-a-half vacation to Hawaii because your uncle was like a veteran. He had a hookup at a hotel. Your dad refinanced a house. Yeah. A month and a half, Elijah. Month and a half. Yeah. Till this day, I'm like, babe, what if we just want to move to Hawaii? But so I had that fun experience, and by the time I came back, this is the day of MySpace, the age of MySpace. I put all my pictures up of my time in Hawaii, and the first person, and probably at that time the only person that commented, was Naomi. Had a girl, Naomi. Yeah. So, yes. became friends over MySpace, and literally we're MySpace. Like, we fell in love over MySpace.
Writing back and forth?
Yes.
Posting little cute emojis to one another?
Yes, but like writing, like our messages were letters.
Yeah.
Like, we never talked for a couple months.
Yeah.
For 4 months, we only spoke over MySpace.
Yeah.
I was too scared to ask for a number, to call her, to meet her up, or anything. It was all through MySpace.
Are you naturally a scared person?
Naturally, when it comes to that, yes.
When it comes to pretty ladies?
In general, yes. To speak up.
Yeah.
And in certain situations, I'm always just nervous.
So you resonate with like the book of Timothy, where Paul's writing to Timothy, saying, "Be bold, Timothy."
Be bold, yeah. My dad was always the one, like, say something,
Yeah, speak up.
And I'm like,
well, the Proverbs say that you're wise and I'm foolish, because I'm always speaking up, and you're like keeping your mouth shut.
I think a lot,
and you look wise whether you are or not. That's what the book of Proverbs say, right? Okay, everybody knows I'm foolish, but they don't know you are. Okay, so you guys are falling in love over MySpace.
Yeah.
You need to write a song about that.
I know.
Have you written a song about that?
No, but I did print out all our messages in a book.
Did you?
Yes.
That's cool.
It was literally like a book.
That sounds romantic.
It was. I gave it to her. Yeah.
That sounds romantic. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. That was juicy. That was good story. This is part 2 of Elijah's story.
Yeah.
We're pulling into Louisville, so we're gonna stop the podcast.
Yeah.
Your story is coming to the listeners in 3 parts.
Oh man.
3 parts. So here's what we're gonna do in this next interview. So stay tuned. The next interview, we're gonna hear about where and how does Elijah propose and get married to Naomi? Where do they move? The military.
Yeah.
His first days in leading worship, how God called him to that. Yeah. Hey, this road we just got on right now, Elijah, it's so quieter. Yeah. I hope that the other podcast, I hope it wasn't too loud for listeners to listen to. Anyways, this is smooth. It's so much quieter. Yeah. Now we're in Louisville. Can you tell, guys? Yeah. Okay, so anyways, we're gonna hear things like what your favorite worship songs are, what your favorite songs to lead and sing are, and just different things about ministry. And hear about how you heard about Real Life and how God connected you to Real Life Sango. So stay tuned, dial into the part 3 of the Elijah Guzman story, and we'll be with you shortly.
You've been listening to the Real Life Church podcast. Find more information at reallifesango.com. Connect with us on our social media outlets. Start a conversation about joining our core team at our website.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you soon at Real Life Church.